When we have windows installed with brick veneer, brick siding, we want to have an expansion joint around the windows. Ideally, we like to see a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch joint around the window between the brick and the window frame. Now what that joint is going to do is give the window it's going to allow some space for the window to expand and contract. Now, the reason that the window will do that is because it's attached to wood framing. It's actually attached to the framing behind the brick, but the trim and the casing around the window touches the brick. So if the wood that's behind the brick contracts, which it will as it dries out, then the windows will move with that contraction. If the window frame is touching the brick, it has nowhere to move. And so what it does is it distorts the casing of the window. Sometimes, most of the times, it's on the seal. I've got a little bit of bowing on this window seal. I want to give you an example of what we typically see. We're going to take a look at these two windows, and both of these window seals have a little bit of distortion, mainly along the bottom. The middle is arched up. Now, I've got a level on this window. We're going to look and see that we're level, and we want to pay attention to the distance between the level and the window here. Now, as we go to the side, notice the distance gets greater. The window seal is bowed. Now it's doing it on both sides, and then both windows are doing it. Here's one without the level, but you can see the same drop on the corners. Now what we would like to see is an expansion joint here. Now this is just caulk. That's the other thing about the expansion joint, is it actually gives room to put a good amount of sealant. When we only have a fraction of an inch, an eighth, to put sealant in place, that sealant, it's not going to adhere very well, and it's not going to hold up very well. If we can get the sealant joint thicker, then we can actually get the sealant to last longer, and we can do a better application of it. So part of it is about the expansion and contraction, and part of it is about application of sealant and having a good seal around the windows to prevent water injury. Now I want to pay attention to the functionality of the window. I want to make sure that everything opens and closes as it should. I want to make sure that the window screen can be taken in and out. Those are typically the issues that come up whenever you have distortion of the window seals, is the window at the bottom, basically where the seal is arched in the middle, you'll end up with gaps on either side, because as the window is straight and it goes down and then this seal has dropped, then you end up with a gap. You could potentially. Now this window is closing and sealing as it should on the bottom, and if we look at the functionality of the window, it opens and closes as it should. It's nice and smooth. And luckily these screens are not in a bind. There's a little bit of a bind when they come out, but you can still open and close or remove and install the window screens. If this seal had excessive arching in the middle, it would push on the bottom of that screen, and it would be very tough to pull that in place. But luckily these will go in without too much of a fight. So we have experienced some of the distortion of the window seal in these windows, but it hasn't resulted in a functional issue, which is a good thing, obviously. But that goes to explain the need for the expansion joint around the perimeter. It's basically a space for buffer. It's a buffer space for the expansion and contraction that will happen, but it also serves as a gap to receive sealant so that we can put a good application of caulk around the windows to stop water intrusion.